soul a dream and mist. Life is warfare and a journey far from home. Lasting reputation is oblivion. Then what can guide us? Only philosophy. Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Philosophy ASMR, but you can call me Phil. Apologies for my lack of posting. It's finals here at my university, and I've been doing my best to keep up. Today we will be reading books 2 and 3 of Marcus Aurelius Meditations. It's also a bit rainy where I am now, so hopefully it's not too loud, but maybe a nice ambience. With that being said, let's get started. Book 2, On the River Gran, Among the Quadi. 1. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not of the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine. And so none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness. Nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together, like feet, hands, and eyes, like the 2 rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. 2. Whatever this is that I am, it is flesh, and a little spirit, and an intelligence. Throw away your books. Stop letting yourself be distracted. That is not allowed. Instead, as if you were dying right now, despise your flesh. A mess of blood, pieces of bone, a woven tangle of nerves, veins, arteries. Consider what the spirit is. Air, and never the same air, but vomited out and gulped in again every instant. Finally, the intelligence. Think of it this way. You are an old man. Stop allowing your mind to be a slave, to be jerked about by selfish impulses, to kick against fate and the present, and to mistrust the future. 3. What is divine is full of providence. Even chance is not divorced from nature, from the inweaving and unfolding of things governed by providence. Everything proceeds from it. And then there is necessity and the needs of the world, of which you are a part. Whatever the nature of the whole does, and whatever serves to maintain it, is good for every part of nature. The world is maintained by change, in the elements and in the things they compose. That should be enough for you. Treat it as an axiom. Discard your thirst for books, so that you won't die in bitterness, but in cheerfulness and truth, grateful to the gods from the bottom of your heart. 4. Remember how long you've been putting this off, how many extensions the gods gave you, and you didn't use them. At some point You have to recognize what world it is that you belong to, what power rules it, and from what source you spring, that there is a limit to the time assigned you. And if you don't use it to free yourself, it will soon be gone and will never return. 5. Concentrate every minute like a Roman, like a man, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness. Tenderly, willingly, with justice. And on freeing yourself from all other distractions. Yes, you can, if you do everything as if it were the last thing you were doing in your life, and stop being aimless. Stop letting your emotions override what your mind tells you. Stop being hypocritical, self-centered, irritable. You see how few things you have to do to live a satisfying and reverent life. If you can manage this, that's all even the gods can ask of you. 6. Yes, keep on degrading yourself, soul. But soon your chance at dignity will be gone. Everyone gets one life. Yours is almost used up. And instead of treating yourself with respect, you have entrusted your own happiness to the souls of others. 7. Do external things distract you? Then make time for yourself to learn something worthwhile. Stop letting yourself be pulled in all directions, but make sure you're guard against the other kind of confusion. People who labor all their lives but have no purpose to direct every thought and impulse towards are wasting their time, even when hard at work. 8. Ignoring what goes on in other people's souls. No one ever came to grief that way. But if you won't keep track of what even your own soul's doing, how can you not be happy? 9. Don't ever forget these things. The nature of the world, my nature, how I relate to the world, what proportion of it I make up, that you are a part of nature, and no one can prevent you from speaking and acting in harmony with it, always. 10. In comparing sins the way people do, Beauvoir says that the ones committing out of desire are worse than the ones committed out of anger, which is good philosophy. The angry man seems to turn his back on reason out of a kind of pain and inner convulsion, but the man motivated by desire, who is mastered by pleasure, seems somehow more self-indulgent, less manly in his sins. Theophrastus is right and philosophically sound to say that the sin committed out of pleasure deserves a harsher rebuke than the one committed out of pain. The angry man is more like a victim of wrongdoing provoked by pain to anger. The other man rushes into wrongdoing on his own, moved to action by desire. 11. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. If the gods exist, then to abandon human beings is not frightening. The gods would never subject you to harm. And if they don't exist or don't care about what happens to us, what would be the point of living in a world without gods or providence? But they do exist. They do care what happens to us, and everything a person needs to avoid harm made sure that the ability to avoid it was within you. If it doesn't harm your character, how can it harm your life? Nature would not have overlooked such dangers through failing to recognize them, or because it saw them but was powerless to prevent or correct them. Nor would it ever, though through inability or incompetence, make such a mistake as to let good and bad things happen indiscriminately, to good and bad alike. But life and death, success and failure, pain and pleasure, wealth and poverty, all these things happen to good and bad alike, and they are neither noble nor shameful, and hence neither good or bad. 12. The speed with which all of them vanish, the objects in the world and the memory of them in time, and the real nature of things our senses experience, especially those that entice us with pleasure or frighten us with pain, or are loudly trumpeted by pride. To understand those things, how stupid, contemptible, grimy, decaying, and dead they are. That's what our intellectual powers are for, and to understand what those people really amount to, whose opinions and voices constitute fame, and what dying is, and that if you look at it in the abstract and break down your imaginary ideas of biological analysis, you realize that it's nothing but a process of nature, which only children can be afraid of, and not only a process of nature, but a necessary one. And how man grasps God, with what part of himself he does so, and how that part is conditioned when he does. 13. Nothing is more pathetic than people who run around in circles, delving into the things that lie beneath, and conducting investigations into the souls of the people around them, never realizing that all you have to do to be attentive to the power inside you and worship it sincerely. To worship it is to keep it from being muddied with turmoil and becoming aimless and dissatisfied with nature, divine and human. What is divine deserves our respect because it is good. What is humanity? What is human deserves our affection because it is like us, and our pity too sometimes for its inability to tell good from bad, as terrible a blindness as the kind that can't tell white from black. 14. Even if you're going to live 3,000 more years, or 10 times that, remember, you cannot lose another life than the one you're living now, or live another one than the one you're losing. The longest amount to the same as the shortest. The present is the same for everyone. Its loss is the same for everyone. And it should be clear that a brief instant is all that is lost. For you can't lose either the past or the future. How could you lose when you don't have? Remember two things. That everything has always been the same, and keeps reoccurring, and it makes no difference whether you see the same thing reoccur in 100 years, or 200, or in an infinite period. That the longest lived and those who will die soonest lose the same thing. The present is all that they can give up, since that is all you have, And the response is obvious enough, but the point is a useful one if you take it for what it's worth. 16. The human soul degrades itself. Above all, when it does its best to become an abscess, a kind of detached growth on the world. To be disgruntled at anything that happens is a kind of secession from nature, which comprises the nature of all things. When it turns its back on another person or sets out to do it harm, as the souls of the angry do. When it is overpowered by pleasure or pain. When it puts on a mask and does or says something artificial or false. When it allows its actions and impulse to be without a purpose, to be random and disconnected. Even the smallest things ought to be directed toward a goal. But the goal of rational beings is to follow the rule and law of the most ancient of communities and states. 17. Human life. Duration. Momentary. Nature. Changeable. Perception. Dim. Condition of body. Decaying. Soul. Spinning around. Fortune. Unpredictable. Lasting fame. Uncertain. Sum up. The body and its parts are a river. The soul a dream and mist. Life is warfare and a journey far from home. Lasting reputation is oblivion. Then what can guide us? Only philosophy, which means making sure that the power within stays safe and free from assault, superior to pleasure and pain, doing nothing randomly or dishonestly and with imposure, not depending on anyone else's doing something or not doing it, and making sure that it accepts what happens and what is dealt as coming from the same place it came from. And above all, that it accepts death in a cheerful spirit, as nothing but the dissolution of the elements from which each living thing is composed. If it doesn't hurt the individual elements to change continually into one another, why are people afraid of all of them changing and separating? It's a natural thing, and nothing natural is evil. Book 3. Incarnandum. 1. Not just that every day more of our life is used up, and less of it is left, but this too. If we live longer, can we be sure our mind will still be up to understanding the world? So the contemplation that aims at divine and human knowledge. If our mind starts to wander, we'll still go on breathing, go on eating, imagining things, feeling urges and so on, but getting the most out of ourselves, calculating where our duty lies, analyzing what we hear and see, deciding whether it's time to call it quits. All the things you need a healthy mind for, all those are gone. So we need to hurry, not just because we move daily closer to death, but also because our understanding or grasp of the world may be gone before we get there. 2. We should remember that even nature's inadvertence has its own charm, its own attractiveness. The way loaves of bread split open on top of in the oven, the ridges are just byproducts of the baking, and yet pleasing somehow. They rouse our appetite without knowing why. Or how ripe figs begin to burst, and olives on the point of falling, and the shadow of decay gives them a peculiar beauty. Stalks of wheat bending under their own weight, the furrowed brows of the lion, flecks of foam on the boar's mouth, and other things. If you look at them in isolation, there's nothing beautiful about them, and yet by supplementing nature, they enrich it and draw us in. And anyone with a feeling for nature, a deeper sensitivity, will find it all gives pleasure, even what seems inadvertent. You'll find the jaws of live animals as beautiful as painted ones or sculptures. You'll look calmly at the distinct beauty of old age in men and women, and at the loveliness of children, and other things like that will call out to him constantly, things unnoticed by others, things that seem only by those at home with nature and its works. 3. Hippocrates cured many illnesses and then fell ill and died. The Chaldeans predicted the deaths of many others. In due course their own hour arrived. Alexander, Pompey, Caesar, who utterly destroyed so many cities, cut down so many thousands of foot and horse in battle, they too departed this life. Heraclitus often told us the world would end in fire, but it was moisture that carried him off. He died smeared with cow shit. Democritus was killed by ordinary vermin, Socrates by the humankind. And you boarded, you set sail, you've made the passage, time to disembark. If it's for another life, well, there's nowhere without God on the other side either. If to nothingness, then you no longer have to put up with pain and pleasure, or go on dancing attendance on this battered crate, your body so much inferior to that which it serves it. One is mind and spirit, the other earth and garbage. For don't waste the rest of your time here worrying about other people, unless it affects the common good. It will keep you from doing anything useful. You'll be too preoccupied with what so and so is doing, and why, and what they're saying, and what they're thinking, and what they're up to, and all the other things that throw you off and keep you from focusing on your own mind. You need to avoid certain things in your train of thought. Everything random, everything relevant, and certainly everything self-important or malicious. You need to get used to winnowing your thoughts, so that if someone says, "What are you thinking about?" you can respond at once and truthfully that you are thinking this or thinking that. And it would be obvious at once from your answer that your thoughts were straightforward and concerted ones. The thoughts of an unselfish person, one unconcerned with pleasure and with the sensual indulgence generally, with squabbling, with slander and envy, or anything else you'd be ashamed to be caught thinking. Someone like that, someone who refuses to put off joining the elect, is a kind of priest, a servant of the gods, in touch with what is within him, and keeps a invulnerable to any pain, untouched by arrogance, unaffected by meanness, an athlete in the greatest of all contests. The struggle not to be overwhelmed by anything, what happens, with what leaves us undyed, indelibly by justice, welcoming wholeheartedly whatever comes, whatever we're assigned, not worrying too often, or with any selfish motive about what other people say, or do, or think. He does not only what is his to do, and considers constantly what the world has in store for him, doing his best, and trusting that all is for the best. For we carry our fate with us, and it carries us. He keeps in mind that all rational things are related, and that to care for all human beings is part of being human. Which doesn't mean we have to share their opinions. We should listen only to those whose lives conform to nature, and the others, he bears in mind what sort of people they are, both at home and abroad, by night as well as day, and who they spend their time with, and he cares nothing for their praise. Men who can't even meet their own standards. 5. How to act. Never under compulsion, out of selfishness, without forethought or misgivings. Don't gussy up your thoughts. No surplus words or unnecessary actions. Let the spirit in you represent a man, an adult, a citizen, a Roman, a ruler, taking up his post like a soldier and patiently awaiting his recall from life, needing no oath or witness. Cheerfulness, without requiring other people's help, or serenity supplied by others. To stand up straight, not straightened. 6. If at some point in your life you should come across anything better than justice, honesty, self-control, courage, than a mind satisfied that it has succeeded in enabling you to act rationally, and satisfied to accept what's beyond its control. If you find anything better than that, embrace it without reservations. It must be an extraordinary thing indeed, and enjoy it to its full. But if nothing presents itself that's superior to the spirit that lives within, the one that is subordinate, individual desires to itself, that discriminates among impressions, that is broken free of physical temptations, as Socrates used to say, and subordinated itself to the gods, and looks out for human beings' welfares. If you find that there's nothing more important or valuable than that, then don't make room for anything but it. For anything that might lead you astray, tempt you off the road, and leave you unable to devote yourself completely to achieving the goodness that is uniquely yours. It would be wrong for anything to stand between you and attaining goodness as a rational being and citizen. Anything at all, the applause of the crowd, high office, wealth, or self-indulgence. All of them might seem incompatible with it for a while, but suddenly they control us and sweep us away. So make your choice straightforwardly, once and for all, and stick to it. Choose what's best. Best is what benefits me. As a rational being, then follow through. Or just as an animal, then say so and stand your ground without making a show of it. Just make sure you've done your homework first. 7. Never regard something as doing you good if it makes you betray a trust, or lose your sense of shame, or makes you show hatred, suspicion, ill will, or hypocrisy, or desire for things best done behind closed doors. If you can privilege your own mind, your guiding spirit, and your reverence for its powers, that should keep you clear of dramatics, of wailing and gnashing of teeth. You won't need solitude, or a cast of thousands either. Above all, you'll be free of fear and desire. And how long your body will contain the soul that inhabits it will cause you not a moment's worry. If it's time for you to go, leave willingly, as you would to accomplish anything that can be done with grace and honor, and concentrate on this your whole life long, for your mind to be in the right state, the state a rational civic mind should be in. 8. The mind of one set straight and purified, no pus, no dirt, no scabs, and not a life cut short by death, like an actor who stops before the play is done, the plot wound up. Neither servility, nor arrogance, neither cringing nor disdain, neither excuses nor evasions. 9. Your ability to control your thoughts, treat it with respect. It's all that protects your mind from false perceptions, false to your nature, and that of all rational beings. It's what makes thoughtfulness possible, and affection for other people, and submission to the divine. 10. Forget everything else. Keep hold of this alone and remember it. Each of us lives only now, this brief instant. The rest has been lived already, or is impossible to see. The span we live is small as the corner of the earth in which we live it. Small as even the greatest renown, passed from mouth to mouth by short-lived stick figures, ignorant alike of themselves and those long dead. 11. To stand by above it, this one, always to define whatever it is we perceive, to trace its outline, so we can see what it is, its substance, stripped bare as a whole, unmodified, and to call it by its name, the thing itself, and its components, to which it will eventually return. Nothing is so conducive to spiritual growth as this capacity for logical and accurate analysis of everything that happens to us, to look at it in such a way that we understand what need it fulfills, and in what kind of world, and its value to that world as a whole, and to man in particular, as a citizen of that higher city, of which all other cities are mere households. What is it, this thing that now forces itself on my notice? What is it made up of? How long was it designed to last? And what qualities do I need to bring to bear on it? Tranquility, courage, honesty, trustworthiness, straightforwardness, independence, or what? So in each case you need to say, this is due to God, or this is due to the interweavings and intertwinings of fate. No to coincidence or chance, or this is due to a human being, someone of the same race, the same birth, the same society, but who doesn't know what nature requires of him. But I do. And so I'll treat them as law that binds us, the law of nature requires, with kindness and with justice, and in inconsequential things. I'll do my best to treat them as they deserve. 12. If you do the job in a principled way, with diligence, energy, and patience, if you keep yourself free of distractions, and keep the spirit inside you undamaged, as if you might have to give it back at any moment, if you can embrace this without fear or expectation, can find fulfillment in what you're doing now, as nature intended, and in superhuman truthfulness, every word, every utterance, then your life will be happy. No one can prevent that. 13. Doctors keep their scalpels and other instruments handy for emergencies. Keep your philosophies ready too. Ready to understand heaven and earth. In everything you do, even the smallest thing, remember the chain that links them. Apologies, that's my upstairs neighbor. Nothing earthly succeeds by ignoring heaven. Nothing heavenly by ignoring the earth. 14. Stop drifting. You're not going to reread your brief comments, your deeds of the ancient Greeks and Romans, the commonplace books you have saved for your old age. Sprint to the finish. Write off your hopes, and if your well-being matters to you, be your own savior while you can. 15. They don't realize how much is included in stealing, sewing, buying, resting, seeing to business, not with the eyes, but another kind of sight. 16. Body, soul, mind, sensations, the body, desires, the soul, reasoning, the mind. To experience sensations, even grazing beasts do that. To let your desires control you, even wild animals do that. And rutting humans and tyrants, from Phalaris to Nero. To make your mind your guide to what seems best. Even people who deny the gods do that. Even people who betray their country. Even people who do behind closed doors. I think that was redacted. You guys can put two and two together. If all the rest is common coin, then what is unique? The good man. To welcome with affection what is sent by fate, not to strain or disturb the spirit within him with a mess of false benefits. Instead, to preserve faithfully, by calmly obeying God, saying nothing untrue, doing nothing unjust, and if the others don't acknowledge it, this life lived with simplicity, humility, cheerfulness, he doesn't resent them for it, and it isn't deterred from following the road where it leads to end of life, an end to be approached in purity, in serenity, in acceptance, in peaceful unity with what must be. Well, that was books 2 and 3 of Meditations. I hope you enjoyed. I apologize for some of my misreadings. It's late again, and I don't have my glasses on. That aside, get some well-needed rest and sleep well. Comment any readings you think might be nice for this channel. As once I'm done with the meditations, I'm hoping to read some articles from the philosophy of science text I have, as that's definitely one of my interests. I also have a book on ethics, as well as a book on action and purpose, but let me know if you all have preferences. I'd love to hear your philosophical thoughts and opinions. With all that being said, good night.